This is Longines Best Diver watch of 2023, and it's the new 39mm Longines Legend Diver, which nails that super compressor vintage aesthetic perfectly. And it seems Longines been on a roll this year with some releases such as the Spirit Zulu Time 39mm, as well as the new Hydro Conquest GMTs in 41mm. Now, before I tell you all about this Longines Legend Diver 39mm, if you're interested in Longines watches, my store Carrot & Co is an authorized retailer, and we carry a wide selection from their elegant watches to their sporty watches. In their elegant side, we have things such as the Master Collection, the Flagship, and also the new Mini Dolce Vita. While on the sporty side, we have the Spirit Pilot watches, Hydro Conquest Divers, as well as the new Conquest watches. Earlier this year, I purchased a Longines Spirit 37mm in champagne dial. It's one of my favorite go anywhere, do anything pilot-inspired watches that I love wearing for day to day. So if you're interested in any of the Longines watches, reach out to my store Carrot & Co. We're located in Flushing, Queens, New York. Let's get into the top 10 updates of the new Longines Legend Diver 39mm. Number 1 is the new size. It's a 39mm diameter with a 12.7mm of thickness and a lug-to-lug of 47mm. Now that 12.7mm of thickness also includes that box-shaped sapphire crystal, which has to be like 2mm of thickness, and it wears great on my 6.4-inch wrist, and I had no issue with the watch slipping under a shirt cuff. The lug-to-lug of 47mm wears really good for me too, because the Beads of Rice bracelet has no flare, so it drops straight down, and I'll talk about the Beads of Rice bracelet in a little bit. Now, the entire stainless steel case has satin and high polish, giving that tool yet luxury appearance, and you'll notice that there's 2 crowns on this watch, which is a continuing design element on the super compressor diver watches. It's a callback to Longines' early 1960 super compressor diver. Now, if you're not familiar, the whole idea of a super compressor diver is that there's a spring in the case back. As you submerge the watch deeper in water pressure, that same deep water pressure that the watch is made to withstand is also going to tighten up the case to make it more water resistant. So instead of having a regular unidirectional bezel on the exterior of the watch, you have an inner rotating bezel, which is bidirectional. And you would operate the bidirectional bezel with the screw down crown at 2 o'clock. It's bidirectional, so whichever direction is closer to the minute hand is going to be the easiest to set, and then make sure to screw down the crown after. While the 4 o'clock screw down crown is for the basic time setting. I also assume if you took this watch diving, as you go deeper in depth, the bidirectional bezel would also be a lot more tighter, making your rotations more precise. Now, the crowns are easy to grip, and I didn't have any issues with the crowns digging into my wrist. And I also really like this crosshatch pattern on the top surface of the crown. Now, number 2 is the new stainless steel Beads of Rice bracelet. Between the lugs is a 20mm lug width, and the bracelet tapers down to 16mm. Now, if you compare it to the 42mm Legend Diver, the 42mm has a Milanese mesh bracelet, but you'll notice that there is a gap between the case and the bracelet. Whereas here with the Beads of Rice bracelet, there's no gap. It's creating a seamless transition from the case to the bracelet. As you go down to the 16mm clasp, you'll notice that it's a dual push button release, make it easy to use. There's no diver extension wetsuit here, and there's 5 positions of manual micro adjustment. And while I would have preferred an on-the-fly adjustment, these 5 positions of manual micro adjustment does fit that vintage aesthetic a lot better. Due to genetics, I don't really have arm hair, so I can't really speak about arm hair pulling between the links, but I hope that's not an issue for anyone. And you'll notice that the exterior links are satin brush finish, while the Beads of Rice section in the center are all high polish, continuing that tool yet luxury appearance. If I had to sum up the bracelet, it's comfortable, it looks great, there's taper, it doesn't flare out, and it's definitely worth getting. Now, number 3, if you don't get the Beads of Rice bracelet, the blue dial version has a new blue NATO strap, while the black dial has a brown calfskin strap on a pin buckle. Like I mentioned, I love the bracelet so much, if I had to choose, I would definitely just go for the bracelet, and you can always add the straps later on. Number 4, you'll notice that the dial has no date and no fotina, especially when comparing to the 42 or 36mm versions. Personally, I'm not a big fan of fotina. Fotina is basically that vintage lume that's supposed to make the watch look like it's older than it actually is. So what I like here on the 39mm is that it's just white superluminova with a clean blue or black dial. On top of that, you get your 3 o'clock hour marker back since there's no date. You unscrew the crown, set the time, screw it back in, and you're done. Number 5, there's 2 dial colors. There's a blue and a black dial. I spent a lot of time with the blue dial version, which is my number 1 choice for this watch, and I would say it has tones of gray in it, so I would call it more like a blue steel color. As you get into dimmer dimmer lighting, it does tend to look a little bit more navy and black, and the dial has really good legibility with minimal reflections. That's also thanks to the sapphire crystal having anti-reflective coating on the top and bottom surface. Now on the 42 and 36mm version, on top of those having fauxtina, they also have this gradient pattern. So on the center has a vibrant color, and as it goes to the edges, it gets more black, kind of like you're diving deeper into water. What I like here on the 39mm is that it's a very consistent color. So the blue dial continues even onto the blue rotating bezel, and it creates this overall look that you can't tell what's the bezel and what's the dial, creating a more fuller image. And also I like the blue dial more just because I think you can do a lot more fun strap combinations. One of my favorite strap combinations to do with blue dials is a gray rubber strap. Now the rest of the watch is very similar. The handset is the same. You have an arrow hour hand with a sword minute hand and a trident shaped seconds hand. Number 6 is continuing on the dial. It's very clean and minimal text. You just have the Longines hourglass logo right under 12 o'clock and the word automatic in script near the 6 o'clock hour marker. On the dial itself, you have raised Arabic numeral hour markers in 12, 3, 6, 9, and the rotating bezel has 15, 30, and 45 written out. So 4 hour markers, 3 numbers on the bezel, and 2 lines of text. 432, very clean, very straightforward. That's it. No water resistance rating, no chronometer writing, no power reserve duration. All of that they'll leave on the case back, which I'll touch upon in a little bit. Number 7 is the Super Luminova. I could not wait to tell you about this because there's both blue and green Super Luminova on the dial. So they mix in blues and greens on the hour markers as well as the Arabic numerals and the hands. And the lume is very strong. And as much as I enjoyed the dial in daylight, I enjoyed looking at the dial when it's all loomed up. Now, my only critique about the lume is that on the bezel, the only thing that shines is the triangular hour marker. I wish that the 15, 30, and 45 also continue that color scheme just to add a little bit more visual presence in the dark. But overall, the lume is great. It lasts a long time and has a really cool pattern. Number 8 is the Longines movement inside. So it's a cost certified movement running +5 to -3 seconds per day with the 72-hour power reserve and a silicone balance spring for anti-magnetic resistance. It's basically the same movement as the 42mm Legend Diver except without the date window. And the movement was tested officially by the ISO 764 for anti-magnetic watches, while the entire watch is officially tested for ISO 6425 as an official professional diver watch. I've been wearing this watch over the weekend and mine's been running +2 seconds per day, which is fantastic, and I've had no issues with it. Number 9, if you flip the watch over, you'll notice the case back is closed, just like on the 36 and 42mm Legend Divers, but this time the diver is in a different position. And if you look closely, the diver here is seen again wearing the Longines Super Compressor Diver on the wrist. So while you're wearing this watch on your wrist, the diver on the case back of the watch is wearing the same watch that's on your wrist. Little reception going on there. And like mentioned earlier, the case back is what's going to mention the cost certified movement, the 300-meter water resistance, and the magnetic resistance. I think it's the perfect place to put all those details. That way the dial remains clean and straightforward. The case back will always be lined up. Think like the Omega Naiad lock system where the case back is always going to be straight up. So everyone is going to get that same image of the diver on the back in the same position. And that's a cool detail because usually when you have these screwed case backs, they're usually all over the place. So this time it's going to be very uniform, which is a nice detail on the case back as well. And number 10 is the new price. So on the Beads of Rice bracelet, both the blue and black is priced at $3,200, while the blue dial on the blue NATO strap is priced at $3,000, and while the black dial on brown strap is also priced at $3,200. This is priced in line with the other 42 and 36mm Legend Diver in the $2,000s to $3,000 range. And overall, I could see someone comparing this watch to something like a Tudor Black Bay 58. Even though they're not exactly the same kind of diver, one's a more traditional diver, while this one is a super compressor diver, I could see someone who wants that vintage aesthetic diver comparing both of them side to side. And as you can see here, they do have a lot of nice details, especially the dimensions that are very similar. And even if you compare the Longines Legend Diver to a higher price point such as the JLC Polaris Automatic, it's undeniable that you get a lot of value with the Longines, and it does a few things better than arguably the Polaris with that super compressor style. So overall, I would say definitely one of my favorite new dive watches under $5,000, especially if you're looking for that vintage aesthetic super compressor style. But what do you think of this new Longines Legend Diver in 39mm? If it's your first time here and you love watches, please subscribe to my channel. I create videos weekly about watches. And again, if you're interested in purchasing, my store Carrot & Co is an authorized retailer for Longines located in Flushing, Queens, New York. Anyways, thanks so much for watching this review. It's been a minute and I'll see you next time. Bye.